Let me start anyway. Good evening. We'll say ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Central and South Planning Committee. I am Councillor Ian Edwards and I am Chairman of the committee. A few announcements before we get into business. Firstly, the meeting is being held in public. Members of the public are welcome, but it's also being streamed live CCTV, YouTube. The camera is just above you, that little dome. The cameras are facing this way, and and members of the public in the committee room are not seen on the screen. However, anybody who comes forward to speak as a petitioner will become part of the filming. So a very good good evening and welcome to anybody who may be watching us online. Normal announcements, no burglar alarm. I keep slipping back into my old job. No fire alarm is expected this evening. So if one sounds, we will be evacuating. Okay, the best way out is the way you came back in. The doors are off, gentlemen of the public, on the right-hand side. If they are blocked for whatever reason, there are fire exits behind me. However, we'll all be leaving the room at the same time and we will assist you. I can ask if mobile phones are please turned off or to silent. That will be most helpful. Residents, there are feedback forms provided on the desk and they're on the chairs. They're also available online for a pull-down menu. We do encourage completion of that feedback form. It helps us to improve our meetings. A tiny little bit about how we'll run the business. This is a meeting held in public, and there are no general speaking rights. The only people that are able to address the committee are the petitioners and agents in response when the petition is against, and ward councillors who've indicated an intention to speak. We do have two petition items this evening. If anybody is going to address the committee as a petitioner, I'll talk you through the timings when we come to it. All the meeting is in public this evening. We have no private part of it, which is helpful. And I will introduce you now to members of the committee around the table. I'll start on my far right-hand side. We have Councillor Stead, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Chamdow, Councillor Ahmed Moulana, and Councillor Yarrow. On my far left-hand side, Councillor Money, Councillor Morse, and Councillor Kashid. They are the voting members of the committee. I will only vote in the event of a tie. We are supported by an officer team. On my far left-hand side, President Hogan is our legal advisor. Luke Taylor is our Democratic Services and keeps minutes of the meeting. James Rogers, Head of Planning. Meg Harani, another mental block, is presenting. He will present each of the applications. And Alan Tilley is our Transport Officer and Advisor on Transport Matters. That's everybody around the table. And as I say, we will very quickly get into the first few items on the agenda. We will march through these within seconds. Apologies for absence.
We've got no apologies.
Thank you. Declarations of interest in matters coming before the meeting. Are there any? Yes, Councillor Morse.
Mr. Chairman, I got a non-pecuniary interest in item 8, which is in my ward.
But you'll be remaining in the... It's just a matter that's in your ward. That's fine. No, fine. Thank you.
Chair, I've got item number 5 and item number 7 in my ward. So in item number 5, I'll be declaring interest, non-pecuniary, but I'll be staying in the room and participating. Number 7, because I have been involved talking to the applicants, and I'll be leaving the room.
Thank you.
Item number 8, Chair, although it's not in my ward, but the applicants came to my surgery and had some discussion with me. So it's best for me to declare my interest on that one and leave the room as well.
Thank you very much. So you'll be leaving us on 7 and 8, but remaining for 5. Thank you. Any other declarations of interest, colleagues? None at all. There are no matters that have been notified in advance, and item 4 on the agenda, and I can confirm everything's in part 1, it's all in public, so there you go. We're now through the preliminaries, and we're turning now to the applications, and this is agenda item 5, number 10, Princess Park Lane. Ms. Harani, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Very quickly, this is a
application relating to 10 Princes Park Lane, which is a semi-detached dormer bungalow, and the application is for a single-storey rear extension across the full width of the property. Members will know that the council has certain standards which it applies to extensions, and in particular rear extensions on semi-detached properties are normally restricted to 3.6 metres in depth. This particular application is for a depth of 6 metres, which clearly exceeds the normal standards. However, there are circumstances which allow us to say that the application is acceptable in this particular case, and they are, if I can go, as you can see, the extension is, I can find my pointer, is from this position up to there. Unfortunately, what is not drawn on is the fact that both adjoining properties are extended. So if I go directly to the photographs, you can see the existing and the proposed extension there, and the existing there, and these are front and rear elevations. So if I go directly to photographs, this is the front of the property, and this is number 12. As you can see, it's extended with a 3 metre extension, and on the other side is this one, which is a 3.6 metre extension. So the actual extension on this property will be 3 metres beyond this extension and 2.4 metres beyond this extension. So in terms of the impact on the adjoining occupiers, if we treated it as a first generation extension, we would say that the impact would be acceptable because they do not exceed the 3.6 metre limitation that we would normally set. So for that reason, we're saying that the proposal is acceptable in terms of its impact on adjoining occupiers. As I said before, both adjoining properties are extended on the ground level and in the roof, which means that the proposed extension is not very visible, and therefore its impact on the character of the area is very limited as well. So for those reasons, we're saying that the application is acceptable as an exception to the council standards in this particular case. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'll ask if Mr. Singh, the organiser of the petition, or Mr. Geraldo, the agent, are present, wish to speak. Okay. In the absence of that,
I can just clarify the petition was in support and both adjoining neighbours signed the petition.
thank you very much. Colleagues, I open this one up for discussion. We've heard the impact on neighbours is minimal, limited. It's also worth, I believe that the garage is coming down as part of the application.
That's right.
So it might actually be an enhancement of the impact on one side, and we have the medical need. Councillor Yarrow.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no problem with this application at all. I think enough has been said within the report. There are some reasons why one might want to challenge the size of what's going to be built, but I think there's enough evidence that there are circumstances and special circumstances that would lead us to want to approve this. So I think we can move the officer's recommendations without any further discussion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morse.
Yes, we know that we are breaching policy, but we particularly also know that 8 and 12 have supported this with the adjacent neighbours, and we're of the opinion that we're going to support officers' views.
You're seconding, are you? Formally seconding? Thank you very much. Show of hands, please, on this one. That is everybody unanimous. That one's approved. Agenda item 6, number 12, Dagnall Crescent, Cowley.
Chairman, this application relates to the addition of a new property attached to 12 Dagnall Crescent, a 2-storey, 2-bed attached dwelling with associated parking and amenity space. If I can draw members' attention to page 13 and the relevant history, members will note that an application in 2006 was refused for a similar dwelling attached to number 9. That application was allowed at appeal. However, there are certain differences or certain circumstances which have led us to the recommendation that we've made in this particular case. and the most relevant of those is that the council's supplementary planning document on residential layouts was adopted after the appeal decision, and was therefore not considered by the inspector when he made that appeal decision. And in that document are standards which set down the requirements for amenity space, and in this particular case the amenity space is substantially below the requirements that the council has, which is 60 square metres for the existing property and 60 square metres for the proposed. In this particular case, both the existing and the proposed are well below that at 42 and 45 square metres. So for that reason, we're saying it's unacceptable. Dagnall Crescent is a fairly heavily parked street, and the surrounding streets there is parking stress in those areas, and the proposal would involve the loss of parking for the existing dwelling, and whilst it would meet the standard for the new dwelling, it would not meet the parking provision for the existing dwelling, and therefore that also forms a reason for refusal. The petition has highlighted a number of other issues. One of those is the impact on the occupiers of the dwellings to the rear in terms of overlooking. The proposal meets the council standards in terms of the distances between properties, and therefore we're not saying that that is a reason for refusal. It also meets the requirements in terms of overshadowing and impact on adjoining occupiers in terms of loss of light as well. So again, we're not saying that forms a reason for refusal. So the reasons for refusal relate to the substandard amenity space and the substandard provision of parking. Thank you, Chairman. There is an addendum, and it proposes an amendment to reason 1 for refusal relating to the parking, so that it only relates to the existing dwelling rather than the existing and proposed dwelling. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I understand, Councillor Bells, you're wishing to speak on behalf of the petitioner. Right. Please come forward. This is rather unusual.
Sorry, I should have gone through the photographs.
Show us the slides.
And the plans. The existing property is this one here. The number 9 and the attached property that I was referring to allowed on appeal is this one here. The existing property, the proposed is slightly wider than the existing, but that was the case with number 9, and the inspector did accept that that was okay in terms of its street scene terms. So that's the existing, and the garage that would go, and the parking area that would form part of the new site. It's just between the properties that you can see this. These are the properties to the rear, and again, properties to the rear. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. It's too easy to get into holiday mode, isn't it? And not keep up with what's going on. I must try harder. Councillor Bells, you wish to speak on behalf of the petitioner. If you come forward, 5 minutes speaking time, on the proviso that you're not then going to try and declare the intention to speak as the ward councillor, thereby going to 8 minutes. That would be unfair. So 5 minutes only, controlled by the lights, 4 on green, 1 on amber, and then it goes to red. I'll bring you to a halt. Please toggle on the microphone so that your words can be captured by the video. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. And thanks for allowing me to speak on behalf of the petitioners. I think this petition has been signed by all the relevant and interested parties in Dagnall Crescent and Benbow Way. And there's 4 reasons why they think there should be refusal for this case. The first one is car parking. Dagnall Crescent does suffer from high levels of parking stress, particularly at weekends and evenings. It is often so bad with cars parked both sides that it's very difficult for emergency vehicles and commercial vehicles to get through. Parking stress overspills into Benbow Way and Barley Crescent, causing difficulty of access to residents of those roads. All petitioners voice concerns about parking and object on the grounds that a new dwelling with insufficient parking provision for the existing and proposed houses, and proposed tandem parking, which is unlikely to be used, will lead to additional on-street parking. The second reason would be amenity space. So due to the layout of the existing house, there is some amenity space to the rear and some to the side. This is adequate for the existing house. The addition of a new two-bedroom house, potentially a three-bedroom house due to its layout, means inadequate amenity space, not meeting the HDAS residential layouts requirement of 60 square metres, laid out in a usable, attractive and private arrangement. The proposed car parking layout means that the rear space is adjacent to the rear boundary of the property, fragmenting the existing space and meaning numbers 28 and 30 Benbow Way back onto car parking, not a rear garden. It should be noted that the rear boundary fences are in ownership of Benbow Way houses and any alteration will require permission. Third reason I think it should be rejected is the impact on privacy for existing properties. There will be a loss of privacy to occupiers of existing and the proposed houses. HDAS residential layouts design guidance 4.12 requires a distance of not less than 21 metres between habitable room windows. Adequate privacy should be assured. Without a full survey, exact distances cannot be calculated. However, scaling from location and block plans gives us the following distance between the first floor bedrooms of the proposed house and existing houses in Benbow Way. 24 metres for number 26, 22.5 metres for number 28, 22 metres for number 30 and 22.5 metres for number 32. These approximate distances are only just above the 21 metre requirement and will result in a loss of privacy to the families and elderly living in Benbow Way who object to the proposal. This is accentuated by the angles between the houses. The equivalent policy in the HDAS residential extensions expands on this. As well as the 21 metres between windows, it is expected that patio areas should maintain sufficient privacy for activities such as eating out or sunbathing. Distances from the first floor bedroom windows of the proposed house to patios, conservatories of properties in Benbow Way reduced to below the 21 metres, resulting in 20 metres to number 26, 20 metres to number 28, 18 metres to number 30 and 19 metres to number 32. All these distances would lead to significant loss of privacy. It is also relevant that any attempt to screen privacy by trees, landscaping will not work. No landscaping is shown to be retained in the rear gardens of the existing and proposed houses. Although not a planning matter, the presence of a Thames Water main sewer, which runs directly under the site of the proposed house, means that the sewer will need Thames Water consent to build over or relocate. This will necessitate the removal of all the trees and shrubs on the site, with perhaps the exception of a tree adjacent, diagonal crescent shown to be retained. Any proposed planting rear of the existing and proposed houses will take time to grow and will always be under pressure to be removed, constrained by the property occupiers due to the small depth of the gardens. And the final reason for refusal should be the impact on the street scene. The final issue is on the impact on the street scene. Emphasis is placed on the 2006 appeal decision for number 9A Dagnall Crescent. This site is quite different, being located in the centre of Dagnall Crescent. The inspector confirmed that the property would be 40 metres away from Benbow Way properties. This proposed house is less than half that distance away from houses in Benbow Way. It is not comparable to the other end of Dagnall Crescent, joining Benbow Way. The location plan shows that the existing house there, number 1 Dagnall Crescent, is a similar distance to number 12. The angles between houses in Benbow Way and Dagnall Crescent vary between each end, and the new house adjacent, number 12, would close the gap.
Draw you to a close there.
Okay, I'll just finish.
Thank you very much. No, I'm sorry, I need you to finish there.
Yep, I'll be finishing. And
thank you very much.
I just urge you to
thank you very
go
much.
on the petitions and reject this.
Thank you. Thank you. Colleagues, are there any questions at all of the petitioner? Clarification? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Councillor, if I invite you to return to your seat. So Mr. Singh, I understand. We've already heard your application, and it's good news. Okay, it's been approved. So I'm very sorry you weren't able to hear the debate, but it's been held and it's been successful. So you can go ahead with the build. Okay. Right. We now come to the applicant, Mr. Denslow, or the agent, Mr. Baldwin, present. No? Okay, in the absence of that then, we come to committee discussion. There are a couple of things that I'd like to pick up. The petition talks around parking stress, which is reflected in the officer's report and agreed in one of the refusal reasons. Similarly with the amenity space. What is not picked up and given as a refusal reason is the privacy and also the impact on street scene. So I'd like to, please, if I may, Mr. Harani, comment on the issue of the distance to patio and whether or not that is compliance with our guidance.
There are two standards that we have. One is the back-to-back distances, so between windows, and that distance is normally 21 metres. There is a standard which is within the residential extensions rather than the residential layouts, which says that it should possibly be extended to 24 metres, taking account 3 metres of the patio area. However, there are we've not won appeals on the 24 metre distance where it's been between 21 and 24 metres. Then the inspectors have normally said that that is a sufficient distance to protect the privacy of adjoining dwellings. So what we've normally done is to apply the 21 metres because of the fact that we've not been successful on appeal on the 24 metre distance. So that is the reason why there is no reason for refusal relating to the privacy issue in this particular case. In relation to the street scene issues, again, the policies that were considered in the 2007 appeal are the same policies, although the residential layouts document is not was not considered at that appeal stage. The policies B13, B15, B19, which relate to design of dwellings and their appearance and the impact on the street scene, are the same policies that were considered by the inspector at that time, and at that time the inspector concluded that the impact on the street scene was acceptable. So that is the reason again why there's no reason for refusal relating to that in this particular case. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, open this up for discussion. Councillor Said, then Councillor Yarrow, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I can't see any reason why we shouldn't go with the officer's recommendation on this application, and I put forward that we do go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Yarrow?
I was going to propose the same thing, so I'll second that. I can't see anything, any other situation regarding the distance we were talking about on patios and what have you. It is in fact just slightly over 21 metres on all of them. I made some quick notes on what the councillor was saying, so I'm quite happy with that. So I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any issues at all? No? Right. Okay. Show of hands, please. Having been formally proposed and seconded. That's unanimous. That is refused. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to number 7, please. Thank you very much. It's an early evening for you then. Well organised, Mo. Okay, agenda item 7, number 7 Nestles Avenue. Mr. Harani.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will recall this site from previous discussions at committee. This is an application for a variation of condition. Permission was granted in 2012 for the use of the site as for a higher education as a college, and it was restricted to that particular use and no other use within that use class, which is D1. This is a variation of that condition, asking for the use of the building to be allowed to be used as a primary school. And your officers are recommending refusal. There are differences in terms of the traffic generation and the way that children would come to the school between what has been allowed and what is being proposed. In terms of what was allowed, it was a higher education college where travel was normally or was primarily by public transport rather than with children being dropped off to the school. In this particular case, a minimum of 67% of the children are from outside the borough and also come to the school by car as opposed to public transport, which results in a traffic generation which is unacceptable, and also in traffic movements in and around the site, which is also unacceptable and results in dangerous driving, dangerous parking, and impact on pedestrian safety and highway safety. So for that reason we are recommending refusal. Again, if I can go through the plans, there is a proposed parking and area which is very minimal, and again it's not sufficient, and also if I can just go to the photographs, the actual access to the site leads to a fairly large industrial estate where you've got very large vehicles going in and out of the site, and making manoeuvres at the site. You can see the parking situation in and around the site, and these are just some of the vehicles that go in and out of the site. So for highway safety and pedestrian safety reasons, the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Just a quick comment. I actually had to go to a different site close to Nestles Avenue this morning, and there's an issue with Viviash Close, and that often the HGVs have to do a 3 or multiple point manoeuvre at this junction, and it involves them reversing round in front of what would be the school entrance. And there was actually this morning when I went past, not only was a vehicle doing a manoeuvre at that point, there was another one queuing to do a similar manoeuvre. Hence, there is a very serious highway and pedestrian safety issue here.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, discussion? Councillor Chandel and then Councillor Yarrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think that we have to think too much about this. We've seen it before. They still haven't put anything sensible, I would say. Because at the end of the day, it's about the safety of the children, and I haven't seen anything here, so I propose we go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Yarrow?
I'll second that. It just is not a place for a primary school. Higher education, yes, but a primary school, definitely not, so I'll second it.
Councillor Morse?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We're a bit surprised that this was even open at this location, because it is so dangerous, and we totally support officers' views.
Okay, so having been moved and seconded, show of hands please on support. That is unanimous support of officers' recommendation. Refusal, thank you. The last one, number 18, Colebrook Close. Please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for conversion of the roof to habitual use rear dormer and hip to gable, and a first floor side and rear extension. It is in the most part retrospective, and works have been completed. So if I can, in essence, go directly, this is what the original property looked like, and the adjoining half of the semi is of the same design, and these are the proposed plans in essence. So you can see the size of the extensions that are being proposed, and the two-storey, and what has happened is that he has converted the original hipped roof to a gable, very large rear dormer, and built a two-storey side extension with a hip roof, which now doesn't match the gable, but is, as you will see in the photograph, completely at odds with the design of the properties around, and so we're saying that in terms of its appearance and its, so what he is proposing amendments which result in the setback of the two-storey element further back, but in terms of its design there is no change, and in terms of the hip to gable and the dormer, that remains the same. So the reasons for refusal relate both to the hip to gable and dormer and the two-storey side extension, and as you can see, it doesn't, in terms of the appearance doesn't reflect the appearance of the adjoining dwellings or those that surround it. I would bring members' attention to the fact that this is a subject of an enforcement notice that's been served. That notice was served quite a long time back in 2014. It hasn't been complied with, and there's a lengthy planning history relating to extensions to try and retain or mostly retain what's been built, and those have, in the most part, been refused or withdrawn. If I can bring members' attention to the addendum sheet, we have had a request from the applicants to defer the application or request members to defer the application, and within the addendum sheet set out the reasons why your officers consider that members should make a decision rather than defer the application in this particular case. There is an amendment to reason 4 for refusal as well, to reflect the fact that the two-storey element is no longer angled, but is a straight wall, and so there's a slight change to the refusal reason. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rogers.
There's one typographical error in the report I'd just like to quickly correct. It's quite an important one. Halfway down page 39, so there's a paragraph that starts with the words "the two-storey rear element," and if you drop 6 lines down, there's a line that starts, its width at 4 metres would be, and it should say more than 2/3, not less than. It's quite important because it's highlighting one of a number of breaches of HDAS guidance in this case. So it should be more than, not less than, and I'd like that to be put in the minutes. I've made that correction to the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Duly minuted. Colleagues, I'm not minded to consider a deferral on this one. We have a full officer's report. There is very substantial planning history on it. We have the appeal inspector's comments. We have a number of reasons where this fails to meet our guidance and standards, and those guidance and standards are in place to protect our residents from planning harm. This clearly breaches it on many circumstances. So I open it up to you for discussion or comment. Councillor Morse?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we totally agree. This is an absolute carbuncle of a development, completely breaching all our rules. The only issue I possibly would ask is if we could give them another 6 months, because you've raised the issue that we don't give it. I think you're quite correct that 3 years is a substantial period of time, but I would say possibly, and I understand, I've not been advising my fellow councillors have. We've been advising them to actually submit a compromise on this issue. I would perhaps ask that we give a fixed time limit of perhaps continue negotiations. Is that possible in this conclusion?
No. What we're going to do is consider the planning application before us now, and we can either accept it or refuse it. And if they then wish to put in yet another planning application, that is at their discretion. But I'm not prepared to defer this planning application. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Yarrow.
Thank you, Chairman. No, it's gone on for 3 years with a hell of a lot of prevarication, I think, on their side, and we're getting absolutely nowhere. My only worry is that it's taken 3 years and we still haven't managed to actually enforce what we wanted to enforce for a variety of reasons, I'm assured. So I don't know whether you proposed or seconded, but if you haven't, I'll propose that we accept the officer's recommendations and we certainly don't defer it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Yarrow.
Quite happy to second the officer's recommendations.
Councillor Money, you wish to come? Fine, okay. You've beaten to the table by Councillor Morse. So formally proposed and seconded. A show of hands, please, on that one. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. That one's refused. That brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you.